Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the best Vault Hunters in Borderlands 4 on a tier list. Now I'll be breaking down each of the different skill trees here as I've used them all through leveling and for endgame Ultimate Vault Hunter 5 content. I'll be playing this all in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, and first starting off with Vex in her phase familiar. Now this skill tree is thought to be the absolute worst in the game, however there are some synergies here that do apply. Now, with most of these skill trees, they do benefit from obviously a dip into another tree, and Vex benefits the most because her green skill tree is undoubtedly her best, with these here giving bleed and lifesteal, which just makes every build for her very strong. I'm going to obviously try to focus here on the phase familiar here, so you can get yourself movement speed in this skill tree. You can get the familiar back. On the latest update, there is actually a boost to the overall damage and health of Trouble, which was great. However, I still think, obviously, with a pet, there are some things left to be desired with this build. My favorite is to use the Unsealed Capstone here, which will give you 50% extra gun damage on a target. So this can kind of play into using some of your other skill trees just because you're going to get the boost to the overall damage. You can also use the Beast Mode here, making Trouble immune to damage. I actually think it's not bad for solo play, and I'll be honest, just because Trouble actually does a really good job of holding aggro. The Reapers are great too, and that's what I actually prefer using, but Trouble, especially with the latest buffs, it does a decent job if you want to play solo. Now, any of the Vault Hunters here can do all the content in the game, and you can still have a really great time. I do recognize this skill tree is a little bit lackluster. The biggest thing I think for getting this skill tree is going right down here, because you got, again, the immunity to all damage for 10 seconds, which is pretty crazy. And then the Grave Thirst here, which whenever you get a kill, you get lifesteal, and this applies to your minion as well, so they can get their lifesteal back too. And then with some of these skill trees here, this one gives bonus shock damage, which actually ends up being quite a bit of extra damage. It's 120% at 3 stacks. Bonus damage that's going to also help out with their lifesteal. And then you also have this here, which also gives your phase familiar lifesteal. The unfortunate part, though, is the damage output is going to be terrible, so that's why we need to have some specific class mods. I find the Undead Eye class mod for Vex is great, because this will allow you to get blood shots with your snipers without having to go too far into the green skill tree. In all honesty, that's probably the best class mod. The ones that boost up her overall damage for her minions don't actually compare, because Trouble doesn't do a lot of damage, but you can see here, he's doing something very vital for us. He's holding aggro, and that pink ring is giving us 50% extra gun damage, so yes, the red Vex is going to have a much longer time to clear. I'm not even using anything crazy here. Like, you can throw the critical hit knife, and obviously with the Undead Eye, you just do a couple shots, and that just chips the health bar down really quickly. But that, again, is using the green skill trees. So, yeah, damage output isn't crazy, but you see there, Trouble's not really doing too bad. The lifesteal that you get just from picking off a couple enemies is enough to sustain. So you can honestly do this and kind of play a bit AFK. Obviously, that's not going to be the most ideal, because you do need to get a few kills to be able to replenish the health of Trouble. But with a gun like the Stray, which will automatically aim for you, you can just have Trouble doing its thing and take down bosses relatively easy. Again, this is in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. Much slower time to clear, I'll be honest with you guys. But yeah, Trouble does a pretty decent enough job of holding aggro. Another nice thing is activating your skill will actually revive Trouble if Trouble's down, so you can really stall with this build, and that's, I think, its biggest strength. You want to use for class mod, as mentioned, the Undead Eye here, which will give you the Bloodshot. This one also has plus 40% kinetic damage and plus 45% sniper damage, which is crazy. When paired with the Timekeeper's New Shield, keeping our health very high. We have a bunch of damage reduction, so we're tanky in and ourselves. We get lifesteal as well, and then Trouble's just doing its thing. Like, this skill tree isn't super powerful. The enchantment, I should have grabbed this one, getting bonus kinetic damage, 37.5% when your action skill is active, is actually a huge boost to the overall green tree, obviously. But I think this skill tree is not as bad as some people are saying that it is. I'm not going to put it in the D tier. It's like probably like a C to B tier, I'll be honest. I think Trouble got some nice buffs, and likely this will get buffed again. Pet builds in any game aren't going to be the meta. It's just the way it is typically. I do think it could be a potential B tier, but I think people may be upset if I rank it a little bit too highly, just because Vex's other skill trees are much better. Now, if you're upset I put the red skill tree a little bit lower than you might have expected, the blue skill tree is this, but much better. This is because it has almost infinite sustain here. You can grab this, which gives us the ability to take 2 augments. So with the Dark Pact, whenever we got our minions active, we can fully restore the health of all our phase clones while giving them an increased movement speed and attack speed duration. They won't lose any health while this is active for 12 seconds, giving them insane tankiness. But then we can also give them the Coven, so they'll recover health whenever we spawn in another Reaper. And then we also have a ability to spawn a Reaper whenever we get low health. And then we also get the Hellish Harvest, which is the best augment here. Whenever your Reapers attack, their third attack will recover 15% of their maximum health for target hit. And if they do a big cleave, they can sometimes hit a ton of enemies. The Reapers have almost infinite sustain. And not to mention the Illusionist class mod here, which lets you summon in badass versions of them. And the first one every 90 seconds will be an automatic badass. So you don't actually get a lot of the abilities for having your action skill up. So some of the other ones, whenever we have that out, it's only during the duration that we have that out. Now, the Reapers are just going to go around. We got a badass one over there, just shredding enemies down. The great thing about this is for general mobbing, the Reapers are amazing because they not only grab aggro from enemies, but they also will fight the enemies that get stuck underneath things. So if you're fighting a boss or an enemy that gets stuck inside of a wall, these can go through and just absolutely shred them. So yeah, I'm just going to let them do their thing here. You can only have 3 active at a time. The damage from them isn't amazing. It's just the sustain that they have. If there's enemies around, they're going to last pretty much forever. They lose an ever-increasing amount of health per second, but their third attack is that big attack there where they do a bit more damage. Yeah, it's not going to shred bosses down, but it's actually kind of funny. In one of the boss fights in the main campaign, I was streaming this game. I got underneath the map somehow, but I was still able to summon in Reapers, which would fly up and go fight the boss, and I could take it out without even having to fight the boss itself. And obviously, the skill tree is great because you can also use the green skill tree for 15 points. And then when your Reaper's health, although I did this a little bit late, but we have that ability there, which makes them, again, immune to all damage. They recover all their health, but we also have kill skills that recover our minions pretty quickly. I'm not even firing my gun, just letting them do their thing in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. Obviously, if fighting alongside them, this would go down a lot quicker. You also have the Spectres here. I should use these because these are great for flyers. Although the Reapers are going to be a bit higher damage, there's also a skill tree here where this can take your own gun, and I actually think that's probably the highest damage output because you can use things like the Kickballer, which normally would give you crazy amounts of damage to yourself, but you can use it as your summon won't actually cause damage to yourself. So yeah, there's some pretty cool builds that you can do with this, but overall, I just think this is the better summon build, and honestly one of the best builds in the entire game. For that, I'd have to put the Dead Ringer into the S tier, just because it is extremely strong. Especially because you can literally just sit here. I got my cooldown back to give them the infinite health again, and whenever you do that, it refreshes their timer on the health going down, so they become so much more tanky, and you see they're attacking really fast. This is a fun build. I really like the concept of using the summons like this, and yeah, it's pretty powerful. And as you probably expected, the best skill tree for Vex is using her Vexcalation Incarnate here. This is an Eldritch Blast. It's decently strong, but the big benefit from this is we actually can use things like the Witchy Trigger Finger here, which will give you the ability to refresh your gun's ammunition whenever you do this attack. It's crazy. It also gives you increased gun damage by 15% per stack, so it's an extra 45% damage. Even if it didn't boost your damage, this is already a crazy skill. And then paired with the Heart Piercer, I think this is where this build really comes together. This can be kind of tricky when using certain items because it does 20% of your current health. But the thing is, it also does bonus damage based on your sacrificed health. So if you're using a item like the Timekeeper's New Shield, which gives you a big boost to your overall health, but removes your shield, this can take your health out quicker, but deals so much more damage to the enemies. And this will also restore your health whenever you hit an enemy. So this can be good sustain. You can shoot it an infinite amount of times, and shooting an infinite amount of times means you get your gun damage back, so you can just keep alternating between the two of these. It also, the green skill tree obviously has the Leeching Attunement, giving yourself additional reload speed and life seal. The 10% life seal is actually quite massive. This allows you to stay alive very long. And then we also get the Bloodletter here, which it currently sounds like it's going to get fixed, but right now with critical hits like the critical hit knife, you can make your bleeds critically hit and continue to scale up high in damage. Still, this is a really powerful ability even without using the critical hit knife because the gun damage is actually kind of nice. Bleed's pretty effective in this game. And then this one just gives you a boost to your overall kinetic damage as well. And then there's also the very powerful Bloodshot. Whenever you use a rep kit, or next shot will be a Bloodshot, converting damage dealt into kinetic damage and then getting bonus damage. You can also then use some of these other abilities here to further enhance your Bloodshots and things like that. This skill tree is crazy. And putting it all into practice here, so we got our blast there that it does, and then we have our Witchy Trigger Finger, which just lets us spam our gun and then go boom with this. I don't have the skill tree there for the final perk on it, but the Heart Piercer is really great. And then it just continually lets you reload your gun there. The damage from this skill tree is also quite nice. So yeah, this is the absolute best sniper type build in the game because you get that bleed off on the enemy and it just goes crazy with the Bloodshots. Now, you can also use the ability to give yourself these bloodshot on snipers as well. I don't have that currently equipped, but it then becomes absolutely nuts the amount of damage that you can do. This right here you're seeing is probably a glitch that will get patched. But my honest opinion on this is the craziest first 15 points I've ever seen in a Borderlands skill tree. I don't even think there's anyone else that has that much utility out of this early of an investment. So this is a great dip, and I would have to say that the Incarnate is the best that we've covered of all of Vex's skill trees. Blue is obviously very powerful as well. Green's got some of the best skill trees in the game, and red is okay, but best utilized with some of the other, like the green skill tree. Now moving on to Amon. Unfortunately, he is one of the weaker Vault Hunters in the game. They are going to be buffing him in the future, but I don't see any area where his kit will become absolutely cracked like the other ones. But at the same time, some of the more powerful kits will be brought down probably in power, like Vex's green skill tree there. So I do see good things coming for Amon, and he's going to be a beast when the level cap increases because his red skill tree has one of the best abilities. Now, this was a green skill tree that I was working on, and the axes are fun, but they just aren't as good as obviously like Ordnance, Amon, or even using the red skill tree. I think his green skill tree is probably the worst skill tree in the entire game. The red skill tree is pretty nice, but melee is the worst gameplay style in this game. So that obviously brings some complications. And the Scourges here kind of combines all that together, but it's very tanky. Now, I guess I'll be focusing on the Calamity here first. The Forge Fists kind of suck. They make the game feel like Doom, which is fun, but them in themselves aren't that effective. There are some okay augments here, and they actually, a lot of them got big, huge buffs to their overall damage, like 78% damage buffs. It's okay at the end of the day. The big thing here is there's actually a few good skill tree points. So Forged and Seal, whenever you use your your Forge skill, which is this ability here, the Horcleave, 55-second cooldown. They've reduced his cooldowns. I like it with the Crucible for the 30-second cooldown, but this will give you immunity to all damage for 6 seconds. This can make you pretty tanky. He also got a really nice buff here. His melee damage from the Titanium Knuckles is boosted to 40%, but again, melee damage sucks. It's better to utilize on things like grenades that deal melee damage, but his best part is Berserk. Berserk is just crazy. So this will give you bonus cryo damage with guns and melee damage and slow immunity whenever you activate your Forge skill, the Horcleave there. And then there is only red. Whenever you kill an enemy while Berserk is active, it will restore the Berserk duration for 9 seconds and give you bonus damage 60% per kill, up to a max of 600% bonus damage. This becomes crazy. This is his best. This is the best skill tree points in Amon's entire kit. Every build for Amon can actually benefit from going here because this gives bonus melee damage, and the damage bonus is huge. And then with My Touch's Death, now this is where this is interesting. So when you deal melee damage, you get a 24% chance to activate your kill skills. The green skill tree actually has the Tempered Pyre, which does melee damage, a Forged Drone. So when you activate your skill, a little melee helper drone comes out and fights. And then you also have the Ice one here, which is ice melee damage. And then there's the Lightning one here. And then there's another Cold one here, which you can grab. So you can get 4 different drones to fly around, helping activate that. That makes the green skill tree cool, but unfortunately, green skill tree is really bad. But overall, I do think this one could use a little bit more oomph. Like his damage output is pretty rough. So this is the Forge Fist here. You can see it's doing sweet nothing. Also, I rolled the worst boss. This boss can roll in a few different types of elements, and it's a fire one right now. So yeah, I'm doing absolutely nothing. That's the unfortunate downside to fire damage is it's actually resisted by a lot of things in this game. This is like the first Borderlands game where fire damage does not feel like amazing. But yeah, you can see there, we did sweet nothing with our kit there. So worst action skill, one of the best skill trees. That bonus cryo damage is nice. There's not a lot of cryo resistances in this game, so yeah, even with the Hot Slugger, which is everybody's best gun, he's really not that good. So I'll be honest, the Berserk is great, but Amon's really best utilizing like an Ordnance, because Ordnance is really powerful, and he actually has a really good skill tree in the blue that emphasizes on that, but this is pretty pitiful damage here, so yeah, I may actually rank this, like I think Phase Familiar from Vex is a slight bit better, but I think the skill tree is one of Amon's best, and if you're going to use an Amon build, Berserk is something you really want, so I might just put that into the B tier, because Cybernetics I'm not going to be so kind to. I did a build yesterday for this, and it's an okay build. Like again, you can beat the game, and you can play Ultimate Vault Hunter on any of the characters. It's going to have a slower time to kill. That's just one thing that's with this build. If you want to use it the way that's intended and not use like a bunch of ordinances and crazy things like that, the green skill tree is going to be weaker. And I actually recommend not going down and taking the capstones because they also just kind of suck. So the best way to actually use this is early game Axe and Stone, and then maybe switching to the Hour of the Hammer. My personal preference is Searing Cold because this lets your axe automatically freeze, and then the fire axes will pass through people. The axe damage isn't crazy. It's the primed and detonation damage that you want to get up high. Like this here will give you bonus to your detonation damage. It's not worth investing more than one single point into your drones because the damage from the drones is so bad. It's not worth taking them at all. So yeah, all the drones are just 1 point there because I'm using them to proc another skill tree. This is a skill tree that even if you go down lower, you're not going to get much return from your investment on it, unfortunately. So I do think that despite this being an extremely fun playstyle, I want to make that clear. I like this playstyle. It's fun. You can play Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. It's just the weakest, unfortunately, putting that in the D tier. And I don't know how they're going to fix this. Maybe if they boosted the damage of these by like 300%, that'd be like the only way that this would actually make it feel like you should use it. So yeah, unfortunately, the green skill tree is a bit lackluster in its damage. Hopefully we'll see some buffs though. And this is moving on to our last one, the Scourge skill tree. Now, Blue Amon is actually pretty fun, and there's multiple builds that actually work well for this because he's got some pretty cool abilities. So, Ordnance when he gets Overshield when he gets Ordnance damage off. I think the best is the Tail of the Comet here. So whenever he deals Ordnance damage, there's a chance to do a cryo status effect that is cryo damage over time, and you can actually get some pretty crazy chip damage off with this. He gets increases to overall Ordnance damage. What's crazy about it is his action skill actually does cryo Ordnance damage. So anything that boosts cryo damage like this, 30% boost, is going to boost his action skill. And this one here also gives you cryo application chance and all that. So they all synergize well. And if you want to use something from the green skill tree, there's actually class mods that gives you endless bombardment here, purple class mod. This will give the grenades a chance to refund themselves, and heavy ordnance will refund 1 ammo on damaging enemies with a 6% chance per stack. And what's crazy is then you can take all the boosts to your overall damage here, and with that class mod, you can use like a purple grenade launcher and do crazy damage. However, my favorite way to use this is actually use the skill tree and using the Eternal Winter here. This got 100% damage boost in the last patch, which is crazy. 100% damage on the third wave, which is the big one that does a lot of damage and does not consume your Vengeance. Vengeance is the amount of damage that you can block with this, and it consumes it utilizing this, but this lets you keep your action skill up pretty much indefinitely. Alongside the Glacial Rupture, I think this is a really fun combination. So again, here it is in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, and you saw how poor the last one did. This isn't crazy good, but you can see these blast waves are actually doing enough, and my bar in the middle of the screen is continually keep building up, because if you keep hitting with this, it'll keep building it up. So you can literally just spam your action skill and use it the way that it's intended. I got my other skill there, which is in the cryo damage over time. This is an Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, and that's actually pretty crazy, considering we're playing the class exactly as it's intended. We're not using any hacks here or anything crazy, and I'm not even using the most optimized build for this. One class mod that does really benefit this, though, is adding our melee damage in addition to this, and when Scourge is active, we get increased cryo efficiency. This also gives it plus 45% cryo damage and elemental damage. It becomes pretty nuts, although there's a lot of other ones here that actually work pretty decently alongside the blue skill tree. The Onion Shield's nice, but I could have even optimized this a little bit more and took it like the Watts for dinner. So yeah, this shield is actually pretty crazy, as you can see there. The skill tree got majorly buffed. That was in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. Good enough damage, honestly. That's enough to take out bosses. I don't think this is good enough to put it into the S tier because the time to clear is not as good as going to be the other two that we have here, but Vengeance is really nice. I think this is Amon's best. And actually the best build for this would be to use the grenade launcher, but you can totally use the Scourge skill, action skill here and make it viable. Moving on to Rafa, who has one of the most absurd skill trees in the entire game. Really fun too. Peaceburger Cans is the first one we're going to focus on, and this is his best. His red skill tree is nuts. You know it's going to be a good one when you get literally 25% bonus gun damage right from the start. What's crazier is if you have the BOD legendary shotgun, which counts as 5 different gun types, this applies 5 times for 125% boost to damage. Nuts for just 5 points. Now, actually, one of the best level 6 abilities in the entire game is Harlowe's, but this one's the second best, Bullet Buddy Deluxe. This allows you to regenerate or give you pretty much infinite ammo whenever you're using your Peacebreaker cannons. You press F, and this makes it so that you consume no ammo, but your action skill will drain quicker. He's got some pretty fun abilities too, like giving a 30% damage reduction while you're in your overdrive. His right-hand skill tree is actually probably his best. I was playing around with a beam team one, which works well too. Vitriol's a pretty crazy one with the Hot Slugger, one of the best guns in the game, getting a 55% boost of extra corrosive damage on every single shot that you fire. And then he's also got the ability to do more indirect projectiles like ricochets, which are insanely powerful in this game. You also have an increased chance while sliding. You can get lifesteal on your indirect projectiles. You get a bonus fire damage on them. You can get your indirect projectiles can get a chance to also bounce around to multiple enemies. This build is absolutely absurd. And it works all the way through on any of these skill trees. Like you can actually use all 3 of these and they're all great. But the red skill tree is absolutely his best. So just going ahead here, activate his action skill. What's funny is this gun's actually not that great to use with this Bullet Buddy Deluxe because it already gets infinite ammo. Or it already gets a pretty fast fire rate. Here we're shooting it just roughly the same as if we were just normally reloading it. So this is better on things like the bod shotgun, which you can then just fire a crazy amount of times. I should not have brought that gun out by accident. Yeah, you can see with any type of ricochet, he's got crazy damage output. So you can do some nutty things with Rafa. And the beam team, I think, is one of the most fun ones. Since corrosive and shock is so common in this game, it's nice to have both of those as an option. This isn't even his most overpowered build. That'd be going into the ricochet build. But yeah, you can see there, we're doing so much damage that even if we do get blasted, the extra lifesteal we get from ricochet is enough to sustain us there. So yeah, it's pretty good. Honestly, one of the best in the game, and I would actually probably say this is a little bit better than Vex's, and I do anticipate Vex's will get a bit of a nerf at some point, so this is just a strong skill tree overall, and a pretty fun one at that. Next up is the arc knives, which does have a bit of lackluster damage output compared to the rest because melee is so bad in this game. When you attack with your action skill, you do mark the enemy for 6% more damage. This can stack up to 4 times per enemy. It's okay. It's really okay. I think this build, or the green skill tree, kind of suffers from lack of identity with where it wants to build around. Like you can get increased gun damage here, which is great. You can get that from another skill tree and increase melee damage, which is kind of the whole point of this because our attack steal melee damage. This gives you a critical hit chance. This one gives you life steal with it, which is all great things. Ordnance cooldown right there. Bonus damage with skills and ordinances in the element of his gun while overdrive is active. Like, from playing around with this, I just felt like his melee build isn't that great in comparison to like if you wanted to run Amon melee with the scored skill tree, and that was even before Amon got his buffs. Now this build is okay, I guess. I just feel like if you're playing Rafa, you want to go for the Peacebreaker cannons just because the damage output from them is much higher than the arc knives is. Arc knives is cool though, and it will likely get buffed, but from my current experiences playing it, I feel like the damage output from this is just a lot lower. It doesn't feel like Rafa's kind of best way of playing, and I don't even really overly enjoy his green skill tree that much. If you want to play a bad green skill tree that's focused on melee, do the cybernetics from Amon. I do think this one is a little bit better because you can get some nice extra benefits and deal additional like grenade damage with your attacks here. This one does boosted fire and corrosive splash damage. So there is some fun-ish things, and it makes like the damage is going to be a little bit higher than the cybernetics, so I'm going to put it roughly around here. But I actually think I prefer phase familiar a little bit more, in all honesty, just because even if you dip into the other skill trees, like the boosted gun damage is kind of nice, but then you almost want to just grab Bullet Buddy Deluxe and play Peacebreaker cannons. I don't overly love the arc knives, and I don't think that again, you can play the whole game and beat it with this, but I just think that for the skill tree, it needs some other buffs somewhere. And Rafa's blue skill tree, the Apophis Lance. Now, this one actually has some cool builds you can utilize with this. This one, I think, takes some of the things that are not so great in the arc skill tree and just make it a little bit more powerful. The Apophis Lance is decent enough, and it has some cool abilities here, like the metal management here, allowing you to, whenever you activate or re-trigger your action skill, you consume no ammo for 2 seconds. And also one of the best skill trees, kind of similar to the Vitriol in the red skill tree, is the first impression, giving the first bullet after reloading a 50% gun damage boost. This again boosts up Hot Slugger. One of the best skill trees is actually to take the Peacebreaker cannons, then get this up to the first impression here, just because the damage boost is so nice. Then you also have the Jacques here, which allows you to gain bonus overdrive benefits, and then turn those into Mate stacks here, which allows you to get your action skill back a little bit quicker. Permalast is kind of funny, allowing you to deal double damage with your action skill, although the action skill damage, especially if you take Project Gorgon, it's 6,000 per second, which is okay, but it also will chain around to multiple enemies. It's actually a pretty decent skill tree all the way through. Like you can take any 3 of the capstones and they're all decent enough. And you also get some nice boosts elsewhere. And again, you can always just go into the skill tree, get that 25% gun damage boost. Yeah, I think Rafa is going to really benefit from going into higher levels, especially once the DLCs drop. So I do anticipate blue skill tree will get boosted more. It'll probably still be better in the green arc knives. But honestly, the Apophis Lance is quite good, and I'd have to say that we're going to throw this into the A tier. I think Vengeance Amon's a little bit better because Ordnance on that is just crazy. That's not to excuse how good this one is, but honestly, Peacebreaker Cannons is by far the best Rafa skill tree. If you're going to play Rafa, this is the one to play because it's just so good in so many situations. It doesn't require any specific gear, although the Hot Slugger does benefit highly. And Harlowe, in my opinion, is the strongest character in the game. They gave her an insane skill tree in both green and red. Red is my personal preference, but I want to take you through the infinite crit build here because there's some funny synergies here. If you're to take the nuclear winter here, this gives you bonus cryo or radiation damage on your attacks. And then with our excited state here, whenever an enemy is damaged by Harlowe's action skill, the next shot on it will be an automatic critical hit. Since this makes our gun do action skill damage, it gives us infinite critical hits. And on top of that, whenever action skill damages an enemy, we get allies and ourselves extra shield capacity, 30% of the damage dealt. This is nuts, giving us automatic critical hits. And all it takes is just one stack there. And then I also like to take one stack of the Gamma Ray Burst. Since we are going to be having a lot of overshield, we can then just expend that on extra damage. Alright, so the same boss we've been fighting in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, throw out our action skill there, boom, critical hits for days. This is insane. Yeah, that is the skill tree doing everything there for infinite critical hits. And you shred bosses really quickly with this, obviously. This is not even the craziest build for her. The other thing is, if you damage enemies, you get our action skill back. So you see there, we're still in our action skill, because every time when they're shooting at it, we're keeping our action skill up. And then we get restoration for it really quickly. We basically will always have critical hits active. This becomes even crazier with the Katagawa's Revenge. The boss will last like 3 seconds because this one with the shock version of it creates little jellyfish that shock the enemy doing critical hit damage. It's absurd. This is the strongest, I think, critical hit style build in the game. It's actually insane because with the convergences you saw there, it just shreds them down. It's literally just a skill tree interaction, taking Nuclear Winter, which is a this is just an augment that gives us that bonus damage, which counts as action skill damage to trigger our excited state for those automatic critical hits that are also boosted by 35%. Yeah, it's safe to say this build is absolutely insane. Cosmic Brilliance, I'm going to throw up. I honestly think it's going to be maybe a little bit weak. I don't know. I actually could probably say it's stronger than Peacebreaker Cannons in some ways, but I'm going to put it right below there. I just think Peacebreaker Cannons is really, really good in itself. Bullet Buddy Deluxe is amazing. Yeah, this one's crazy, but this isn't even as good as Harlowe gets because her Chrome Accelerator is even more crazy. Now, Harlowe actually got one of the craziest abilities I've ever seen in a Borderlands game. So boosting our action skill damage is insane. 30% boost their action damage because with our neutron capture here, whenever we use our action skill, that is stored and transferred to our gun, causing it to deal bonus radiation damage equal to 4% of the total action skill damage dealt. If we hit a ton of enemies with this, this is a crazy boost to our damage, and it has some funny interactions. But furthermore to this, this is applied onto things like Katagawa's Revenge, which I'll get into. But her skill tree is also really good. Bonus elemental damage or reload speed here, so you can get some even further crazy damage. Boost of 21% extra radiation damage. She has so many boosts to radiation damage, it's nuts. And then going down this middle skill tree is nuts. 30% radiation damage, 60% irradiation chance. Whenever you radiate an enemy, you get a dart that shoots off that deals 3,000 damage, 2-second cooldown. This deals a bonus 18% damage to entangled enemies, which are enemies hit by our action skill, which we're going to use. Kill skill, whenever we kill an irradiated enemy, we leave behind a radiation hazard. And there's also this one here, which we deal an additional 40% of the irradiation damage as an explosion. And the Demon Core, which is crazy, shoots radiation darts at enemies when we activate our action skill. And whenever you entangle an enemy while our action skill is active, it automatically irradiates the enemies. And the damage from the darts is pretty high, 4,000. So yeah, you're going to see. With some dips into other skill trees, whenever we entangle enemies, we get 25% bonus critical hit damage. This becomes absurd. Neutron Decay, get a 10% gun damage stack, 5 stacks whenever you irradiate an enemy. And then with this one here, radiation damage will give us action skill damage boost, bringing up that even higher. This one, whenever we shoot an entangled enemy, we can get our action skill down almost immediately with Katagawa's Revenge, which you'll see. So the green skill tree actually complements this one very well. So this build does not require anything crazy. You shoot your big ball there, you then explode the ball, and then you shoot Katagawa's Revenge. And each of these is going to be doing your action skill damage, and that boss is dead fast, so you can see the red health bar appear. I know that was a bit quick, so let's replay that again. We'll just shoot our big ball of explosions, blow it up, and then shoot this gun, and then booyah, the health bar gets deleted. This is also the boss that you're going to farm Katagawa's Revenge from, so yeah, this is not even the best role of Katagawa's Revenge. You can get one with the Jacob's License accessory, which will critically make multiple of the blue jellyfish appear, so you only have to do one shot. And then with the critical hit knife, it becomes even crazier together, which is not required for this build, but very powerful. And if you don't like that gun, you don't have to use it. Any gun that shoots fast is going to have this crazy effect on it, so if we just use a shotgun like this, You can see there goes its health bar again. So yeah, it is pretty absurd the damage that you can do with neutron capture. This is one of the craziest. Actually, I think this is the most overpowered ability we've ever gotten in a Borderlands game, and you get it upon hitting level 6. What the heck? It's crazy. And before the game released, this was actually 10% of the action skill damage. They had to nerf it. Maybe they'll nerf it again. Even still, 2% would still be a crazy amount of damage. I think this is absolutely insane and puts Creative Burst at the best build in the entire game. And yeah, Harlowe with 2 S tier builds. Unfortunately, whenever we come to seize the day, this one just doesn't have the same oomph. The stasis and Halo Accelerator is pretty fun. Like, you grab enemies in place and then you can slam them. There's some pretty okay builds that you can utilize with this. Like, she can get some extra damage when she activates her action skill. You can actually pair this with some other builds as well. With the Strange Attractor, you can cause ricochet between the targets that you have up in your ball there. You can also have it so that you can apply stasis to multiple enemies. This one also creates a singularity for 10 seconds, which is pretty crazy. It doesn't work on bosses though, so it obviously comes with a big downside when you can't do what you can do with the other 2 builds to a boss. This one allows you to do additional slam damage. There's some benefits of running into and going with the ground breaker specialization there. But in essence, this build is just not going to be the same as the other 2. This one is the one that's getting buffed. She is just so strong in her other 2 skill trees that this one just, it's fun if you want something different, because you can entangle a lot of enemies, you can ricochet between them. The damage from it is pretty crazy. The cold storage is actually pretty fun too. And I'm sure that this will get better as well when we get a level increase. So this is pretty fun, but again, it doesn't stand up to the other 2 with the infinite crits or the ability to get crazy damage. So I'm going to say it's probably around the B tier. I might actually put it below the B tier of Calamity, because Calamity is pretty crazy with the Berserk. So there you have it, the best skill trees in Borderlands 4 ranked on a tier list. I could potentially move Deadringer down. Having 3 blue ones in the A tier is pretty funny, but Creative Burst, by far the best. Go back and watch that section if you want to see crazy damage. And it's literally just using no exploits. It's a skill tree itself at level 6. Absurd. Peacebreaker Cannon is one of the best skill trees in the game. It's got a lot of really great buffs, and the action skill itself is great. Lots of ricochets, and the damage output for mobbing and bosses is high. Cosmic Brilliance, infinite crits. Again, same craziness from the red skill tree, just a little different. Incarnate, Witchy, Triggerfinger, infinite bullets, bleed. Everything about this skill tree is strong. I also, again, had the Deadringer up in the S tier for a bit of this, or most of this video. I think this is really good, though. Not gonna lie, I find it a very enjoyable playstyle as well. Vengeance, Amon, Ordnance. You got 2 really powerful builds with either using his action skill or running with Ordnance, or why not both? And the Apophis Lance, I think it's pretty decent, all things considered. Rafa just got a really good skill tree. Calamity, Berserk is the biggest benefit there. Seize the Day, just not as good as her other 2 skill trees. Phase Familiar, I personally like it, but I do think it needs some buff somewheres. Arc Knives and Cybernetics, almost no reason to pick them other than just wanting to have fun with it. I think Cybernetics is possibly the worst. I posted a build for it yesterday using a lot of the red skill tree to boost it up in damage, but yeah, it's just going to be a little bit weaker than the others. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in the next video.